All right, good morning, AFC. Thank you for joining us for our plenary session. This session is sponsored by our gold sponsor, Lynn University. Joining us today is Stephen Pruitt, Director of Graduate and Online Admissions with Lynn. Steve, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Ray, and good morning, everyone. I'm coming to you from Lynn University in beautiful Boca Raton, Florida. And Lynn is proud to be a Gold Conference sponsor and education partner with AFC, providing 20% tuition discount for members toward graduate degrees at Lynn. We offer accelerated one-year masters with no GMAT or GRE required, and a 3-year EDD that only meets one weekend a month. Courses are completed online, on campus, or hybrid format, and discounts range from $5,000 to $9,000 in savings. We provide each student with an iPad to access books and classes, saving thousands of dollars on books. We also partner with individual state colleges to provide tuition discounts and excellent transfer education for students. So please visit the Lynn University Gold Sponsor booth for more information. Now, I'm very pleased to introduce our plenary speaker, Dr. James Pogue. Leadership and training are at the core of who Dr. James Pogue is and drive his commitment to equip executives and professionals with thought leadership to communicate and manage effectively. His military service, scope of research, and work as a speaker and entrepreneur give him tangible examples of the critical balance between leaders and followers on teams. He provides leaders with well-researched, data-partnered, and highly engaged training to improve their ability to impact behavior and the bottom line. Today, he joins us to provide a deep dive into Diversity 2.0, challenging the status quo, diversity, inclusion, and bias. Please join me in welcoming Dr. James Pogue.
Hello, 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 everyone. I hope you're having a great day where you are. And just a quick check-in. How many of us are on our first cup of coffee? If you could just throw a thumbs up or to put 1 in the chat. If you're on the second, feel free to throw the 2 in there. If you're one of these, I'm already on my 3rd or 4th, you don't have to say that out loud. It's fine. We just accept it. We know that folks are having different challenges. And if you're one of those folks that has something special in your coffee at this time of morning, well, there's phone numbers that we can send you to provide you assistance and help if that's necessary. So anyway, I'm glad to be here with you this morning. And when I met up with Marcia some time ago, we had some great conversations about how I might be able to be useful. And I really see that as my job. I spent most of my initial parts of my career in education, have a very special spot in my heart for educators. I think, teachers are my favorite people, followed closely by nurses, because in part, their job is to help people. And were it not for other people, they would not have a gig. And so helping people is, I think, very critical and important. But I want to get myself off the stage and get the information on the stage for us to discuss. But just one quick caveat about how we do what we do at JPE. And what I mean by that is, why do we exist? Or why do I exist? Why do I believe my purpose is? And that is, I believe that we are supposed to be together. I think that people are meant to be close to one another. They're meant to be meaningfully connected to each other. And that every now and again, there are things that get in the way of that. And some of those things are in the big bucket of diversity. And where I've chosen to hang my hat is to try to bring people closer together by navigating through some of these challenges around the, again, big bucket of diversity. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get together. Oh, you will need a tool for today's session, and that little tool is your phone. So if it's not close, run and grab it. Don't trip over anything. Come right back, sit in front of the camera. We're ready to go. All right. So quick thumbs up if you can see the screen in front of you. Make sure our technology is working the way it needs to here. You should see a big head on the right and some fancy stuff on the left and some words in the middle. Everybody good with that? All right, off we go. So again, grab that phone. And what I need you to do is send to me a text, if you don't mind, please. The phone number is 22333, 22333. And the text that you're going to send is James Pogue 065, Pogue 065, like Vogue with a P, but just, I think, just a tad bit cooler. But just make that decision for yourself later on in the evaluations. James Pogue 065, James Pogue 065. Once you've done that, you're going to get a thing that says that you're in. Can I see in the chat if folks are getting in? Anybody in? Anybody in? Anybody in? Bum, bum, bum. Here's where I would play some theme music in the background. I've been working on my bachata game here recently. Any bachata folks in the house? Any bachata people in the house? Or is it just me that's doing bachata in the morning by himself? It's possible. I see you, Trina, Michelle. Thank you so much. Dan, great, great. All right, looks like folks are getting in. Again, this is not required. You don't have to, but if you want, I'd really like for as many voices to be heard of us as possible. All right, so here we go. Now, what I need you to do is pull your thumbs off of the phone now so that we don't have any accidental inputs. All right, here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, and I want you to take a look at this question and then respond. Grading your leadership around social justice challenges today. What kind of score would you give yourself? Your leadership, your ability to lead in these situations across the board, whatever across the board means to you, right? How are you doing as a leader? What kind of grade would you give yourself? Looking at yourself in the mirror. You know the challenges that are out there. You know what your capacity has been to give. Have you sidestepped some things? Are you not quite prepared to be at the meetings that you're at times? Are you doing all the extra work required to get yourself prepped and ready to go? 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right. So just quickly in the chat, what do you all think? You all know the folks that are on the call. Are you surprised at this number? Does this number make sense to you? Does it seem like, I know these people a little bit, and this seems like about the right number. That most of us would give ourselves somewhere between that 76 to 90%. I see you, Michelle. Thank you. Anybody surprised at this number? I mean, we got 3% in that, and 6% total in the 50% or less category. Thank you all for being open and honest, and for all of us. Mel, I see you with the not surprised. All right, let me ask us to pull our thumbs back again. I've got another question for us. Okay, let's see. Question number 2. Looking back during the summer of 2020 and your leadership then around social justice challenges, what score would you give yourself? Looking backwards, summer of 2020, the world was imploding, exploding. Some of our campuses, imploding, exploding. Some of our convenience stores, some of our neighborhoods, imploding, exploding. How was your leadership then? We're going to give you 10 seconds to get that answer in there. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and any last ones, get them in there, and pause. All right. Now let's take a look at this one. Same people, similar question, different timestamp. What do you think? Any surprises here? Obi, I see you. Wasn't equipped to help others. Thank you, Trina. Roger, surprised. Okay. Janellis, I see that. Alonda, agree with Tina. All right. So here's the deal, folks. Something happened to all of us during that summer. And many of us were not equipped, ready to handle what was occurring right in front of us. That was bubbling up, where the attention was being demanded. Our leadership was being demanded. And some of us weren't ready. We hadn't lifted those weights yet, so we weren't ready for that game, right? And so when the time came for us to show and prove, we weren't quite all the way where we needed to be. We showed up with the skill sets that we had. Some of us, and did the best we could. Some of us. Others of us, in truth, let somebody else take the wheel. We stepped back and said, okay, I'm not sure that's my road to hoe. I got to deal with this over here. I'm gonna give that leadership opportunity to someone else. But remember all the things that we were taught as we were growing up, professionally and otherwise, how we should face the big challenges. Leadership is optional. And some of us chose not to take up the yoke of leadership then. Okay, that's what happened. Where are we at now? How can we get better? How can we get stronger? Right? How can we be better prepared? Because I think we might all agree, that there will be a next thing. Whatever that next thing is, who knows? But if our muscles aren't stronger than they were during the spring of 2020 in preparation for the summer of 2020, we're going to find ourselves in a very, very tough position. Let's move forward. Whenever I'm doing these talks, and I try to remind folks of the following. We have, in our organization, we work with hundreds of companies, tens of thousands of humans now across the world. And I want to give you the benefit of all the mistakes and failures that we have made. One of those in the earliest of days, was not being very, very clear about what we are saying and what we are meaning when we are saying it. That is to say, baselining language. For today, I'm going to ask you to agree with me that these definitions are what I'm going to use. When I say diversity, this is what I mean. I mean the full range of human differences and similarities. When I say inclusivity, what I mean is seeing and providing equal and equitable access to opportunities and resources. What do I mean by equal versus equitable? I happen to be 6'2". My mom is 5'3". Pretend we're both at the football game. We both need to see. In order to see, you have to be at the 7-foot level. You as our boss or as the event organizer, give us both a 1-foot box. I am able to see very clearly. Mama can't see. We both have an equal size box. If we wanted to be equitable, we would make sure Mama had a box so she could see, and I had a box so I could see. Equal, same size box. Equitable, a box so I can see, a box so she can see. Mom didn't do anything to get to be 5'3". I didn't do anything to get to be 6'2". Based upon what I'm bringing to the table, you're giving me an equitable opportunity to see the game or participate in the game or be in the meeting. For today, I'm asking, can we agree? Diversity, the full range of human difference and similarity. Inclusivity, seeing and providing equal and equitable access to opportunities and resources. Can we agree for today that when I say that, you will hear that for me? Can I get a thumbs up or a yes or a no? If somebody's vetoing it, that's fine. We will have opportunities during the panel for you to chime in and we'll discuss that, right? Getting folks on board in a conversation is critical. Sometimes we are so interested in having the conversation, we forget to say, is it okay that we talk about this? And here's the words that I'm going to use, right? So that's advice and counsel number one. Level set folk, particularly your team, and so that when stressful situations come, you all are onboarded when it comes to language. Moving forward. Quickly in the chat, how many bias trainings of one kind or another have you been to? How many bias trainings of one kind or another have you been to? I haven't been to any, James, 0. I've been to 37, James, just last week. I see Yolanda at many. I'm gonna go with many being 17, just for fun. Mel 5+, including the one I teach 4. There we go, Dan, several. All right, so this should accelerate our progress here. I have found when I talk about bias, let's keep it simple. Bias, a prejudgment in favor or against a person or group. A prejudgment in favor or against a person or group. Keeping it simple. It comes in 2 buckets. Unconscious, we're unaware it's present, out of our control, happens automatically. But there's a conscious part. Still triggered by my brain's quick judgment situation, influenced by our background. Everything in the conscious also happens in the unconscious. For clarity, it is necessary for me to say that there are times when we use the term unconscious bias to cover all manner of sins, as the pastor might say. I know that I'm biased against this group. I know that I'm biased about this kind of person. I know it. Thus, it is conscious. But I use the term, we all have unconscious biases. We all have it. Conscious is different than unconscious. Conscious, I can do something about. Unconscious, I don't even know that it's there. I need help to see it, help to navigate it, to help pull it out of my decision-making, my hiring practices, my promotion practices, my admissions decisions. So bias, prejudgment in favor or against a person or group. Broadly speaking, two different kinds, conscious and unconscious. All right, let's move forward. So again, baselining language, so critical and important. One of the other items that we've learned, and you may have picked this up in your learnings or experiences as well, is that diversity has different kinds of it, and they come with different weights. We call these weights the DIBS, or diversity, inclusion, and bias, big 8. Diversity, inclusion, and bias, big 8. These are the big boulders of diversity in our lives. That if we were to change one or more of these, it would dramatically affect who we are, how we see the world, and how the world sees us. Let me use socioeconomics as an example. Imagine, if you will, the amount of money your family was bringing in when you were 12 years old. 12. Pull that number out of your head. Do some quick math. See what you have there. Whatever that number is, I'd ask you to add 3 zeros to it. 3 zeros. Now imagine how that changes the zip code that you're living in. How that changed the school that you went to. The educational opportunities that you were provided. How you got back and forth to school. The vacations that you took. Your opportunities for college, trade school, military, entrepreneurialism. The shifts that happen with 3 zeros. Now back to the 12-year-old annual income. This time I want you to subtract 3 zeros. For some of us, subtracting those 3 zeros puts us squarely in some of the worst poverty in the world. What are your opportunities for vacations then? What are your opportunities for college, trade school, military, entrepreneurialism then? What's the zip code you're living in? How are you getting back and forth to school at 12 years old with that kind of income? Socioeconomics matters. It's a big deal. Let's take religion or faith. Some of us are very much faith-first persons. That's how we enter the world. It's what we do in the morning to wake up. It's what we do at night before we go to bed. It's what we do on Wednesday at Bible study practice, Thursday at choir practice, Friday at the men's and women's meeting, Saturday cleaning up the church and the bake sale, and Sunday at services. It's what we do. What happens if you wake up tomorrow and you're agnostic or atheist? How might the world look at you differently? How might you look at the world differently? Just a little while ago, our country brought 100,000 plus folks from Afghanistan over here. Now, regardless as to how we might think about it, stay with me on this. Imagine if you wake up tomorrow and you're a Muslim. How does the world look at you differently? How do you look at the world differently? Religion matters. Politics matters. Ability matters. Sexuality, age, gender, and race all matter. These are the big boulders of diversity in our lives. I'm a military veteran. I'm a military brat, full of military vets in our family, even a couple people that went to the Air Force, he says sarcastically. That helps to shape and frame who I am. And as powerful of an influence as it has been, it is not as powerful as these 8. Now, I'm willing to have the debate about James. We should include this or include that. Here's one item that I'm collecting data on to see if it is as critical as these 8. So I'll ask you, what do you think is as critical as these 8 that you would add to the list. As critical as religion, as critical as socioeconomics, as critical as gender and age and sexuality. Can anything pop into your head? Anything pop? Nationality. I see you, Dan, and this is I pull that into race. I know that it can be seen as different. I know this, and I'm open to having the debate, but I find that there are times when it's that paralysis by analysis. So I put it over there, and then we at least can have the conversation about it. Education level, education. I push that melt into the socio part of socioeconomics. Right? Let me insert one. Tracy, I see you on marital status. Let me insert one and see how it pings your thinking. Being a parent. I think that being a parent shifts dramatically how the world sees you and how you see the world. That being said, at 7 years old, the vast majority of us are not parents, but we do have a race or gender or age or sexuality or in a socioeconomic situation. So I'm not completely there with it yet. And April, I see what you're saying, because even like choosing not to be parent or not has a ton of impact. In particular, if a lady, a woman, decides she doesn't want to have children, or for whatever reason does not. She happens to be, let's say she's 45. She shows up at the event and people are talking about kids, and it comes up that she doesn't. People think a certain way about her, don't they? So being a parent or not, I'm still working through that, but it is on the list. I think marital status is up there, maybe a dibs +1, a dibs +2. So we'll see how that comes out here in the next year or so, if we're gonna shift that up. Let's move forward. Now, one of the other pieces that has been critical over the last year or so for people is to realize, how do we know how well we're doing? About 5 years ago now, we developed this inclusionary leadership assessment, which allows us to take a measurement of leaders, teams, and organization and see where they are when it comes to their organization, their leadership themselves, their teams. What you see in front of you are these 5 phases. You're seeing them left to right, but they're not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In fact, they're more amorphous. A person can be in experimenting and move to hesitant, from discomfort and move to engaging, from investigating to move to engaging as well. What moves us in between them is challenge and support. Challenge and support. That's what moves us from one to the other. What I want to do is go through each of these. Please, in your own ways, take whatever notes you want to take, right? And then we're going to come back to this information in a little bit and do a little bit of a quiz. So there is a test of sorts towards the end. Moving forward. Now, hesitant. If you happen to be in this hesitant phase, you might say, look, I just want to be around folks that are like me. I want to work around people that are like me. However, I determine like me. Military brat, economics, education level. However, I determine like me. I also say that these conversations that aren't about the business, they don't belong in the workplace. That's why we have coffee breaks and lunch breaks. It's not that I have issues with folks that are different. We just don't have a lot in common. And yeah, you know what? I'm scared of being canceled. I may lose my job. My kids may not like me anymore if I say something. I may not be respected by my friends and colleagues if I open my mouth and say what I want to say and need to say. People are waiting for me to make a mistake, to say the wrong thing. And then they're going to come for me. And I'm not willing to take that kind of risk. I'm about to retire in 5, 7, 10, 12 years. I'm not willing to take that kind of risk. And if you ask me, I couldn't give you a clear definition of diversity, inclusion, and bias, or if I could, I'm not going to try, because I might say the wrong thing. Now, oftentimes in our mind's eye, because of our biases, a picture pops into our head about what this hesitant person looks like. So let me out myself and share with you that I have been in the hesitant space. Right after the George Floyd murder, I found myself walking around my place in circles, only wanting to be around people who are like me, think like me, talk like me, understand the world like me. I was uninterested in other ideas. It took a good, and there was the challenge of what I saw like everybody else saw that pushed me into that space. But I got a phone call from a friend who says, James, you're supposed to be an expert in this business. You're supposed to know what you're talking about. You're supposed to be leading. Where are you? Why are you quiet? I don't see you on LinkedIn. You're not blogging anywhere. You're not on any podcast. Get yourself together. I was hot with this woman for a while because I didn't want to move, but she poked me. And I ended up heading back in the direction that I needed to be in order to be useful to the world. Discomfort. These folks might say, you know, I work around different people all the time as a function of my role. I'm the VP. I'm the director of. I'm the coordinator of. I got to be around these folks. But it's a challenge. I'll tell you what, it's hard. I'm not really convinced that there's a business connection at all when it comes to these conversations around difference and so on and so forth. And yeah, I've got some anxiety around speaking about you. I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to trip over my language and say the wrong thing. This is not a safe or safer place to do that. And if you ask me about this diversity, inclusion, and bias, no, I'm not confident about my statements. I'm not at all. Investigating. These folks might say I work with other races or different folks all the time. Non-business conversations about difference. Yeah, that stuff is interesting. I'm learning a lot. It's thought-provoking. It intrigues me. But I rarely see that business connection. It's just tickling at the tips. I'm starting to see it, but I don't see it a lot. I want to learn more to figure it out. I need to. I should. I could. I would. I do not. I don't close the loop. I think it'd probably be okay if I asked the questions, but I don't. I think I got a decent handle on this diversity, inclusion, and bias definitions and overlap and stuff, but I'm not exactly clear. Which brings us to experimenting. These folks do close the loop. They push themselves to have those meaningful interactions with people who aren't like themselves. They're going to ask the question. They're going to attend the event. They're going to dig, and they're going to say the awkward thing. And they're going to grit their teeth and say, you know what, I'm going to try. That is, yes, it's risky. I may get embarrassed, but it's necessary. It's stressful, but I have to do it in order to be the kind of leader or the kind of person that I want. And because I'm doing all this, I'm getting a better and better handle on being able to define diversity, inclusion, and bias, which brings us to engaging. For these folks, it's organic, it's natural, it just flows. I need to be around different people. It's who I am, it's what I do. I wouldn't know how to exist otherwise. There are times we talk about our younger friends and say, this is just how they are. Whoa, careful. Not all of them. And quite frankly, not most of them. They were raised in an enclave of sorts too. Remember, dibs, big 8. Most of us are raised around people in the same socioeconomic status that we are. All right? So, some of us, as we've grown out of that, are like, hey, I want to be around different folks. It's who I am. It's what I am. I think it is connected to our success, to my success as a human, to our success as a team and as an organization. And if I say something that's a little awkward or strange and I scratch someone, I'm in a place with my team, my organization, where they can come to me and say, hey, James, whoa, that was a little funky there. And I want to help you understand what happened. Now, it may annoy me, and I may need to take a step away from that person for a little bit, but I know that they're doing it in good faith. Authenticity, transparency, integrity. And so we work with grace and respect and forgiveness in order to move forward. Yes, I can define this diversity, inclusion, and bias business, and I'm getting better and better at it, more and more expert at being able to do that within the context of my organization. So we have the hesitant. I want to be around people that are like me for whatever my reasons are. Discomfort, I'm around different people all the time, and it's a challenge. I'm not really clear at all and don't think there is this business connection. Investigating, still struggling with the business connection. I want to do more, I should do more, I could do more, but I don't close the loop. Experimenting, I'm working hard to close the loop. I'm gritting my teeth and making it happen. It is stressful, it is risky, but it is necessary. Engaging, it's natural, it's organic. I'm a part of a team and I am an individual and I'm part of an organization where we do this. And if we scratch each other in grace and forgiveness, we say what we need to say and we move forward, even though sometimes it's annoying and it can be nettlesome and all of these other kinds of things, all right? Think for a moment about where we might place ourselves or have some kind of understanding of this. And I'm gonna ask you to pull your phones back out, please. Grab your phones, 5, 4, 3, 2, got your phone in your hand. I'm gonna ask you to take a look at this question and then respond. Rate your organization and its comfort level around diversity, inclusion, and bias. Hesitant? A, discomfort. B, investigating. C, experimenting. D, engaging. E. Where are you? Looks like a ton of us just jumped right into the investigating space. Hey, we're working hard here, but we're not closing the loop like we need to. Discomfort is taking the lead there where, you know, hey, I'm around people because I kind of got to be. It's difficult. I don't really see the business connection in all of this, but, you know, it is what it is. 10 more seconds, please. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and I'm going to ask us to pause, please, so we can all take a look at this. Now, let's add up investigating, discomfort, and hesitance. We've got 40, 50, 60, about 70%. Is that right, give or take? A little less than 70% that aren't closing the loop. I'd ask you to consider right now, where is inclusive leadership for you on this? Where's the break for inclusive leaders here? Can you lead inclusively and be in the hesitant space? Can you lead inclusively and be in discomfort space, or experimenting, or investigating, or engaging for you? Think about that for a moment. Thumbs back, thumbs back. Let's go to the next question. Rate your senior leadership when it comes to race, diversity, inclusion, and bias. Your senior leadership, however you define that in your mind. Where are you? Where are you? Let's give this 15 seconds. 15 seconds, 15, 14. 15 seconds, 12, 11, 10. 10, 9, 8. 8, 7, 5. 7, 6, 5, 4. 5, 4, 3. 2. And pause. And pause. Look at what we got here. We have where if we draw the line at inclusive leadership being somewhere C, D, and E, let's just draw the line there. We are saying that over half of our leaders are not leading inclusively. Over half. Pull your thumbs back if you don't mind. Pull your thumbs back if you don't mind. We have one last question. What about you? Where are you with this thing? Today, where are you? Now, I get that people may change, may shift. I did. It's fine. It happens. Sometimes you get poked with a stick by something that's happening. You know, I can say with all transparency, I was challenged and still sometimes am a little bit around the pronoun piece, not in terms of whether or not it's appropriate for people to do, but the fact that I trip over the language, right? There's new information that comes into my mind. I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't know that. And I got to take myself back on certain places and say, okay, let me reorganize myself there. That I'm not quite as comfortable talking about some things as I would like to be today, and I want to get better. Where are you? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and I'm going to ask you to pause. All right. So we've got about a third of us that would say we're in an engaging space, a third in experimenting, and about a little less than a third investigating, a couple in discomfort. What are your thoughts on what you see? Dump it into the chat. What do you see? What do you see? And let me go back here for you. Thumbs back, thumbs off, please. Thumbs off, because I'm going to click back through these screens for us. This is what we say about our organizations. This is what we say about our leadership. This is what we say about ourselves. You know, and I get that sometimes in these kind of conversations where people show up to hear me talk, it's the choir. You're kind of preaching to the choir a little bit, right? And that's okay. Yeah, that's how you get them to sing, right? However, how are we leading our leaders and demanding and expecting things of them? How are we shifting our organizations? Thank you, Jamie. We have a responsibility to get those leaders in there. Trace, there's always room for improvement. I agree with you. The question becomes, how do we do it? And so I suggest strongly to organizations, you must assess it. If it's not getting measured, it is not getting done. You either get an assessment like this one, where you can measure humans, their leadership, their inclusive leadership, their teams, and their organizations. Once you have that assessment, then you can identify some strategic recommendations to move forward. And then implement those recommendations, right? Do an assessment, get the recommendations / solutions, and then implement. We have to elevate this, broadly speaking, area of diversity and inclusion to the same level of criticality as we do other components of our organizations. Now, just quickly through the executive lens, we have to think about leadership beyond allyship, championing, and sponsoring. That was a 1.0 version. Allyship was great. Championing was great. Sponsorship was great. I'm suggesting we have to move beyond that as leaders. The leaders have to be leading the way when it comes to this work. They have to be pushing out this idea that either I am today or I am not an inclusive leader or the best inclusive leader. And I'm going to get to work on it. The vulnerability paradox says that if I expose this, that people will think that I'm a bad leader or that I am not good at my job or that I am less than. The reality is that leaders that expose their flaws and ask for help and assistance with their biases and otherwise are seen as stronger and more critical leaders. The vulnerability paradox. You reveal your vulnerability, you think people will think you're less than. The reality is they will not. And you have to have the courage to be the first one out there, yelling and screaming at the top of your lungs that we are going to be more inclusive leaders. I am going to be a more inclusive leader. There has to be transparency when it comes to leaders and the diversity of their lives. Why? Diversity isn't a requirement. You don't have to have diversity in your life in order to be an employee at your organization. I mentioned assessment before. Change begins with assessment. You must measure it. You must do an assessment of your organization, of your team, of yourself, and then see those strategic recommendations and then improve in public. Nothing like a leader who's leading from the front and occasionally falls on their face. Mama told me a long time ago, the view of all the sled dogs is exactly the same except the lead sled dog. Leaders improve in public. And when that diversity isn't there, when that inclusive leadership is not there, it impacts your decisions. It impacts who we hire, it impacts who we admit, it impacts how we build buildings, it impacts organizations that we support and that we partner with. When we are communicating, it has to be these two ways. In diversity 1.0, it was bubbling up from the bottom. We had ERGs and different kind of student groups. We had the women's group and the pride group and the Latino group and the Black group and this group and that group and the Asian studies group. And we had all of these places. And it was pushing the leadership. I'm telling us that diversity 2.0 must be the executives leading. Leaders must lead in order for this to get done. In the summer of 2020, a lot of leaders had these initial conversations. Let me go on a listening tour. Okay, I'll give you that. But how did it continue? Are we still listening or did we stop with that? That was the cool thing to do, right? What's the 2.0 version of that? Are we continuing that? And are we stressing, pushing, demanding of our direct reports that we are hearing everything that we need to hear? Demanding of our direct reports, hey, I'm going to work on being a much more inclusive leader. I'm going to hold you all to task on ensuring that I'm doing the best possible job. I'm going to send us to executive coaching to up our game so we can get out ahead of our organization and lead it when it comes to inclusivity. Now, with all that being said, we got a couple pros in the game that are going to help us see this from the campus perspective. Right, so we're going to bring these folks on board. I'm going to do a little brief introduction, or here's the introduction here in front of you. We are from Florida State at Jacksonville, Chief Diversity and Equity Officer, Inclusion Officer, Executive Director, and Employee Relations. And from Santa Fe College, we've got the Associate Vice President for Student Affairs, Enrollment Management Task Force Chair. And if you haven't had a chance to look at these folks' bios, I would encourage you to do so. From legal backgrounds to extended time at the institution with deep roots, I think that they both bring a lot to the table. To both take a look at what I presented to us, but also, and look at it through that lens of that campus space, but also to give us the stories from their locations and say, this is how it operates here. right? So let's bring these folks to the screen and have some deeper and more meaningful conversation about what's next. Dan, I see you there. All right, everybody else is here. Hello, everyone. Hello, I had my screen up. I couldn't see you before. Hello. Nobody's waving at me. I see you, Tracy. You could have waved at me. You could have waved at me, Tracy. And I'm just here by myself looking like a crazy person. Okay. All right, Lisa. Dan, here. My first question for you is, again, on this idea of leadership from the executive level. Tell me if I've got it wrong, and we can debate in public, and you say, James, you're ridiculous. You're not doing this thing the way that we do it here on our campus. I am saying, Dan, that in order for this to move, leaders have to take up the yoke of leadership and move in a much more significant way. Yes, no, maybe so.
There's no doubt that to make organizational change, it takes leadership from the top. Some folks in the chat were on top of this as well, and leadership at the top doesn't just mean one person. Yes, it's an organization's president. Yes, it's the executive leadership team. It's associate vice presidents. It's directors. It's that upper level leadership across the institution. But it also requires support from the board of trustees. The board of trustees are the ones that are ultimately responsible for the institution's direction. If the board is saying no to a president who wants to advance certain aspects of DIBS, then it's going to be really hard for the president to move that needle and to push forward. And that's an issue in Florida based on how our board of trustees are elected. Different states have different processes for selecting or electing the leadership of colleges. And so that's a real challenge that I think our presidents face. But it's not enough for a president to say, my board isn't supportive. There are ways for a board to, or ways for an executive leadership team to move a board in the right direction, even if there's pushback from the political leadership in the state.
So let me just grab you right there, Dan, and drill down for us. And Lisa, I'm going to ask you to pipe in as soon as he gets done. How do you get the board to move in this direction? What are the strategies and techniques you have found to be successful so that when Dr. Kim shows up, she says, hey, should I just show up at the meeting and rah, rah, rah? Or should I take somebody out to lunch and buy him a sandwich? I mean, what do I need to do here in order to make something happen? What do you got for us?
So I can share my experience at Santa Fe College, and I cannot at all pretend to represent and be able to speak on behalf of the other 27 colleges. We're fortunate that our presidents have, for our current and our previous president, they get it. They understand what we're trying to do as an institution. They understand the mission and the values and where diversity and inclusion plays in this. When we're invited as college administrators are invited to present to the board, we bring data. Data talks, data matters. We are able to share specific information, disaggregate it by race and gender, by disability resources, by nationality, by geographic, where students are coming from, to try to help the board understand the real issues at our institution as related to our district that we are serving. The board cares about enrollment. They care about the dollars. They care about winning awards and prestige. Those are important to our board. And so when we're able to show them areas that we're struggling in, areas that we're weak in, and talk about how this relates to the bottom line, how this relates to the areas that they care about, that opens the door to make changes and to try new things. Gotcha. Sometimes we could talk about a pilot program as a way of starting something that really needs to happen permanently, but you got to start somewhere. And so we found that disaggregation data help the board understand the big picture, be upfront with them. All of that helps us to get our board to see what we're trying to accomplish, even if maybe that may not be where they are as individuals.
Understood. Lisa, what did Dan get wrong? He's talking about bring data to the table and try to convince the board based upon what they believe is important, whether it's awards or enrollment or dollars and cents, and utilize these numbers to drive home a point. What would you add to that? Or if you think Dan is wrong, this is the time to tell him.
No, I think Dan was very much on point. What I would add is, and specifically for our board, one, our president is committed. And what he sought to do is actually go through a process where we revamped our strategic plan, the college's strategic plan. And at intervals, he brought that plan, the work of the committees, as well as the data to the board and did workshops. And as that continued, they were asking questions. I'll say forced us to go back to find answers, thinking, of course, we brought everything to the table that they needed to hear or see. But most recently at our last board meeting a few weeks ago, they've approved the plan. And in each level of that plan, we talk about commitment to DEI. We talk about measuring and being accountable for DEI in all aspects of the college. And so the board, I don't want to say was spoon-fed, but in a way they were spoon-fed throughout the process. And we were able to address, which I did not really hear much of, more questions, more for data, but we were able to address discomfort using your words, James. We were able to address discomfort either as a group or individually as those questions came up. So by the time we got to what we would consider the polished product, we had that synergy of the board. And also just to add in, and this will probably be the tone of the day, this is a culture shift. And culture shifts don't happen immediately. Culture shifts happen from building that trust. Culture shifts happen as we, looking at your list, James, we move out of discomfort, we move into engaging, and we do what I say when I'm here at FSCJ, we do safe space conversations. I don't have to agree with you, but I get to speak my piece, and it's respected that it's my lived experience that I'm sharing. And that helps us continue to move the culture, because to your point, where we were the summer of 2020 looks very different than where we are now. And I dare say will look different 2-3 years from now, what we want to accomplish and what we're calling diversity, equity, and inclusion.
I saw that floating through the chat was a comment Obi made. Thank you so much for that. I'm gonna say a few words, and Lisa and Dan, I'm gonna ask you to respond to that. Right. So his comment, broadly speaking, was that it would be a great start would be if the board or the leadership was diverse. So if I say the following, that's not going to change tomorrow. Right. I want to be way on one side of this issue to give you an opportunity to say what you need to say. That's not going to change tomorrow. It's not going to change next week. It's not going to change next year. However, I'm sorry, Obi, I got you. I had a gender issue there. Thank you, Tracy, for correcting me. So it says it's not going to change tomorrow. What can we do? And I think that we might be able to insert inclusive leadership into people regardless as to what they might look like, regardless as to who they might love, regardless as to. My good friend Thurgood Marshall, that's a lie, never met the man. But my good friend Thurgood Marshall, when he was retiring and they were interviewing him, and they were saying, hey, do you think that President Bush should replace you with a Black jurist? He says, why? Why is that important? My daddy told me that a Black snake will bite you the same as a white snake. So my point / question to set here for you to consider is, can we take Samantha, who's on the board, and cultivate Samantha and build out her inclusive leadership, and even though she's exactly the same person, so that we haven't changed the quote unquote diversity of the board, but we have changed the inclusive leadership of the board. Tell me if I've got it wrong, Lisa. Let me start with you.
Sure. No, I think that's true. And I also think that's for all of us. I think, again, for what we're talking about in terms of dynamics, we meet people where they are. We share experiences, information, as Dan pointed out, data. For some people, we've had board members that all they spoke were numbers. I mean, you could give great student stories and it didn't matter. It was all numbers. Numbers is not my thing. Thankfully, we have people who have that skill set. But connecting with people where they are not making them hesitant about how they're feeling and helping people sort of process the overall goal. I want to believe, and I realize for us, you know, the governor appoints our boards, as for many of us or all of us. I want to believe that you are serving on our board in an effort to uplift the community, uplift our college, uplift our students. So if I make it relevant to the population we're trying to serve, as opposed to, I'm going to browbeat you into believing my belief system, I think we can move whoever is sitting in that chair to a level of diversity, equity, and inclusion mindset.
Dan, what do you have?
I think Lisa's 100% correct. Just because someone has a specific political leaning and to be appointed by the governor doesn't mean they're not interested in the best interests of the institution. They may just not understand what the best interest of the institution is. They have their perspective on it. They have their ideals. That's why it's our job as administrators to help orient the board to what the college's goals are, what our mission is, make sure they're aware of it. Lisa mentioned the strategic plan at FSCJ includes diversity, inclusion, and equity. What a wonderful way for them to say, this is what we are doing and what we care about. That's huge. And that's a sort of thing that board members can still support DIE, even if they have different perspectives from a political lens.
You know, Charlene in the chat typed in, and thank you for the comment. She says, that's easier said than done to help people and board members appreciate and embrace inclusiveness. And I think she's 100% correct. It is easier said than done. And it is almost an impossible task. It might be an impossible task. But here's my thought, that almost everyone on this call, I'm just going to say everyone, because what the heck, why not? If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Somebody let me know. Has done something that is impossible already. The majority of us aren't supposed to be where we are. We're supposed to be some other place based upon some numbers, some data, some statistics, and some trends. You've already done an impossible thing. It's only one more impossible thing to do. Just put it on the list, right? And great leaders, the inclusiveness leaders, demand the impossible thing become the regular task. So I ask you, Dan, what was the last impossible thing you had to do when it came to inclusive leadership?
So we were working on policy issues and exploring policies at the college that may have been in place for 10 or 15 or 20 years that we thought were written the right way and we're doing the right thing. And then we looked at who was impacted by the policies. And we found that some of our institutional practices were having disparate impact on the students who we wanted to help the most. And the impossible thing we did was confront those who were involved in writing some of those policies and who believed those were the right policies to help them understand why what they did may have had a negative impact on the institution and our students. And worked to change policies enacted for good reasons that were having bad impact. And being really able to address it, confront it, and find out a better way of doing business to really help students at our institution while keep our institution safe, not putting institution at risk, but get students here who need the opportunities and not create artificial barriers and walls that don't need to be there. That was an interesting challenge.
Yeah. Lisa, what about you? The last impossible thing that you had to get done?
If I'm being completely transparent, I'm probably still doing it.
No, it is what it is, right? Sometimes you're in the middle of the struggle, but if as I mentioned, leaders have to struggle in public. So give us a little bit on the inside.
Sure. So the DEI officer part of my position came to me during time of COVID. We were offsite, completely in a state of being disconnected, and there had never been one. So what I feel I'm still struggling with is sort of defining how the role in my office fits within senior leadership, which I serve with, but also connected across all of our campuses. And as a specific example, I'm in continual process, it feels like to me, of developing a diversity, equity, inclusion, and belongingness council to serve. I'm a party of one to help serve, sort of expand this, and again, sort of work through our culture and infuse. In my head, the way to get the buy-in, the way to get the support is to take it to different levels of leadership, different groups. What I'm finding is, and this is on me, is every time I take it somewhere, it gets changed. And so what it is forcing me to do is to take a step back and say, okay, looking at our strategic plan, looking at the work we're doing, what is it that needs to be accomplished? What are the goals that I have as I envision this group, and to be steadfast in that. And sometimes in some of the conversations I've had, that's been uncomfortable. And so by nature, I try to harmonize and have everyone leaving as a win. And not that that isn't possible, but to your point, sometimes when the struggle is the struggle, this is what we're going to have to do.
Yep. Yep. And Jamie, thank you for the comment there. Leaders have struggled in public. I'm putting this on my wall. If I come to your office and I'm not attributed for that, obviously there'll be a lawsuit around intellectual property. I just want to be really clear, as a recovering academic, I haven't really got that part out. But I'm hopeful that, it's true. We have to struggle in public. We have to fall on our face every now and again. And I wanted to respond to Teresa, who says, how would I answer the same question as we sort of close? And that is to say that, what is the impossible thing that I've tried to work on or do? I live in Texas, and I work out of Texas, and we have had the privilege of having, some worldwide clients, but also some local clients. And I was at the Texas Restaurant Association meeting about a month or 6 weeks ago. And in that room, it's happened many times here in Texas, most of the people happen to be 50 plus, because in order to be at that level, you have been in the game for 15, 20 years. And most of them happen to be white folks who happen to be Texas Republicans. Great. I'm a big fan of humans. I support humans, pro-human. And I know that sometimes the crowd can be a tough one. And sometimes they have what I used to call, I used to call this the white guy pose. And then I realized, I thought they were not listening, but they were listening. So it mattered what I said, whether they were white or black or brown or Asian or none of the above. It mattered what I said. And so I had to say something that was important, something that was useful, something that was tactical, something that was sticky. And what I told them is what I'm going to share with you here. I told them that in order for them to create the shifted outcomes that they want, we've got staffing problems in our restaurants. How can we get people there? I said, if you want these changed outcomes or shifted culture or whatever the results you want, you're coming to me and saying, what are the decisions we have to make that impact people's behavior to come and work for us? You're asking me for magic dust. I'm all out of magic dust. I am all out of magic dust. But what I can tell you is what does work is meaningful interactions with people, places, and systems. When you and I, the people on this call, you and I, or me and them, the people in that room, have a meaningful interaction that can challenge and reinforce their beliefs. Maybe they used to believe that people that were economically disadvantaged just weren't working hard enough. If only they would work hard, they'd be just fine. They would push the meritocracy argument. And I would say, can you combine the meritocracy argument with the inclusive argument? You want the best people to do the hardest job, but where might you not have been looking? Can we say that women, simply because they're women, walk through the world differently and see things and hear things that men don't hear? And as a result, can see solutions and problems that men don't see. Can we say that? Only one time in one presentation from half of a person, she was kind of like, I don't know. And people said, nah, I don't think so. Most of the time, people said, yeah, women walk through the world differently and see problem solutions differently than men. Okay, if we can say that, can't we also say that about brown folks or black folks or GLBTQ folks and others and others? And if these people can bring different solutions to the table and see different problems, doesn't that make them more valuable? Well, James, I can't hire somebody because they're black just because they're black. That's not my issue. The law is not my issue. I'm telling you what the facts are. I'm exposing you through a meaningful interaction to something that is challenging your beliefs. Now you go and deal with it because you're the leader in your organization. So the impossible task, convincing someone who's allegedly on the other side because they're a conservative, Republican, evangelical, allegedly on the other side. Can you agree with me on this? Yeah, I can take that step. What about this step? I can take that step. What about this step? I can take that step too. Patience, grace, empathy, compassion, along with drive and focus and measurement and numbers and expectation and leadership in equal measure. Too often times, some of our people, if you will, have been soft around the numbers. We've been soft around the measurements. We've been soft around the expectations. We have not kept the expectations extremely high and demanded of ourselves and our colleagues that you be great at your job. You must be great at your job. If you're only good, then you should only expect good results. You want great results? Go be great at your job. And if you can't be great at your job today, go find somebody to help you. Raise your hand and say, Lisa, help me. Help me understand. Dr. Dan, can you come visit the campus? Because I have a problem. I am struggling too much in public. The floor and my face have become intimate friends, and I'm not okay with that. So I'm gonna give Lisa, Dan, give y'all 30 seconds to close up shop, and then we'll say our goodbyes. So Lisa, what do you have for us?
First of all, I always, this is sort of filling my cup. And so one of the things I also have to remind myself is, as I remind the audience, self-care in this work is important. It is taxing, and oftentimes we need to take a breath, more than one. And so while I encourage you to step out of your comfort zone and push and be engaging and be investigative, also remember self-care.
Dan, what do you have for us?
Certainly. First, thanks to James and Lisa for being on this panel. I was honored to be asked to be invited to participate. I think that when we think about this work, baby steps eventually become big steps. Little drops eventually fill up the bucket, little bit at a time. It's easy to finish a presentation like this and think, all right, I'm going to change the world. And you will, but it's not going to open overnight. And it's okay to make small incremental steps. Maybe you focus on your department. Maybe you focus eventually on your division. Maybe it's a class you're teaching. Maybe it's a committee you're working on. Eventually, that work you do piles up and we change culture. Be patient, it'll get there.
All righty, folks, thank you so much for joining us. I know that everybody could have been some other place. It's always good when somebody nods their head first, and the first person nodding their head when I talked was Byron. Thank you so much, sir. I felt like I was out there by myself because people didn't, there was not Tracy smiling. Thank you, Tracy. I appreciate you. Stephanie, I see y'all. Let me just do my little wave, handshake wave. Thank you all so much. You all could have been some other place, having a cup of coffee, having a fifth cup of coffee, perhaps with a taste of Bailey's because the weekend is just, I see, Marjorie, is there Bailey's in that cup? All right. Thank you all so much. Y'all have a good day. And if you have some questions or comments, I'd love to be able to help. I'm easy to find. If you can spell my name, then you can find me. If you can't spell my name, then you got some issues, ask Lisa. She'll help you out. But again, thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. I get to do a job every day that I love to do. I get to wake up every day and work really, really hard, running towards something that I love to do. And there's nothing like, sometimes you feel like, to Lisa's point, like you're out there trying to hold back the ocean. But you have to do it. Because if you're the only one out there, then people can see it. And then they can come and help you. So you have to be out there to push back the ocean. And then it's people like this that are on this call that'll come and help you. So let me shift it back to our moderator. Again, thank you all so much, and we'll see you around the way. I need new LinkedIn friends. Somebody love me.
Well, what an amazing presentation. Thank you so much, James. Dan, Lisa, thank you very much. Can we give them a round of applause, please? Marcia says she owes you a cup of coffee, James.
Just one? You see, boy, budget cuts. Budget cuts are strong in Florida.
Learning about diversity, equity, and inclusion and bias is necessary for us all who want to be leaders with intention. The more we know, the better professionals we become. We really appreciate you joining us today to share your insights and expertise. I also want to thank Lynn University, a neighbor college of mine, as I am the Boca Raton Campus Facilities Manager for Palm Beach State College, for being a gold sponsor of our conference. You can locate more information to contact Stephen in the community or on the sponsor page of the conference website. Lynn University, thank you. We have one final item this morning. We have to give away a hotel stay. Thanks to the Mission Inn Resort, we have a 3-day and 2-night stay. The winner is, hold please.
Flat Ray better not win.
There he is.
There he is.
Oh boy, Eileen's having trouble with the name. We're gonna type it in the chat. Oh, I see April says that Flat Ray never made it to Northwest Florida State College.
Never made it to Tallahassee.
Never made it to Tallahassee, according to Greg. Oh my God,
Wow.
I'm not sure what that was. Well, congratulations. All right, and that is the close of our opening plenary. Thank you very much for joining us and enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you at 3 o'clock for the award ceremony. Bye, everyone.